This episode of the Demonic Compendium contains spoilers for the following games. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to a deadly new episode of the Demonic Compendium, the show where I discuss the mythology, design, and game history of your favorite Megami Tensei demons. Last month we talked about Nyx, the goddess of the night, so how about we head on back to Tartarus for a little family reunion, because today we're talking about Thanatos. Thanatos is the personification of death in Greek mythology and is often referred to as the god of death, a title that is often falsely attributed to Hades, god of the underworld. He is one of the many children of Nyx and Erebus that were born from a silver egg. He shares a close bond with his brother Hypnos, the god of sleep, as the two were said to reside in Tartarus with their mother. As a deity, Thanatos was often referred to, but rarely appeared in major stories. Some sources described him as a beautiful young man resembling an angel, who was bloodthirsty and merciless in his slaughter of both mortals and deities. He hated them, and they hated him in kind. Others depict him as an old man in a black cloak, who was only involved in carrying the souls of those that died natural, peaceful deaths. It's often said that the black-cloaked version of Thanatos influenced other personifications of death, like the Grim Reaper and the Pale Rider from biblical texts. One of the major roles Thanatos did play in Greek mythology involved him being outwitted by the sly king Sisyphus. Zeus instructed Thanatos to chain Sisyphus up in the depths of Tartarus, but he is outwitted by Sisyphus asking Thanatos to demonstrate how the chains work, so that Thanatos winds up chaining himself up in Tartarus, essentially making it so no mortals can die. His biggest role in all of mythology, and it turns out he's a massive idiot. Kinda sucks that's what he gets to be famous for. Eventually, Ares, god of war, gets annoyed that no one in any of the wars are actually dying, so he unchains Thanatos, restoring the notion of death to the world. Thanatos also has a small role in the works of Euripides. In his classic play Alcestis, Thanatos arrives to take the soul of a young king's wife, but in order to repay the couple for their hospitality, the legendary hero Heracles basically says nope, and beats the crap out of the god of death until he leaves. I like to imagine this was the old man version of Thanatos because that's much funnier in my head. Thanatos really needs to get himself a better PR person because he's not looking so great in any of these stories. Thanatos' Compendium entry from Persona 3 refers to him as the Greek god of death. He is the son of Nyx and the brother of Hypnos. He is depicted as a young man with an inverted torch and a wreath or butterfly in his hands. Design-wise, Thanatos has had two major depictions in the series, with his most famous naturally being his iconic Persona design. Keeping true to the lore of him wearing all black, the Persona design seems to draw more inspiration from his younger angelic warrior depictions, wielding a sword and surrounded by coffins. He looks pretty cool, I guess, but he'd look a lot cooler if he had a lightsaber and some electric guitars. His body is covered in chains, potentially as a direct nod to his encounter with Sisyphus. Also, I know this is probably supposed to be like a metal jaw, but I just see it as a beard and it makes me laugh. In the Persona 3 official design works art book, Soejima notes that the coffins on Thanatos' body are used to carry the souls of the deceased into the underworld. He also says, "This persona is particularly memorable for me, as I designed it very early on in the development process, and it became the foundation for all other Persona designs." Considering that Persona 3 was the first entry in the series where Soejima tackled Persona designs, it's pretty interesting to think of Thanatos as the first Persona, and we see this inspiration continue not just throughout P3, but presumably future games in the series as well. A modified version of Thanatos exists known as Thanatos Picaro, where he's featured with a more red and gold color scheme and gold spikes along the top of his head. Like other Picaro personas, the implication here is this is Ren's personal interpretation of Thanatos, leading to the alternate appearance. But this show isn't the Persona Compendium, it's the Demonic Compendium. And Thanatos' demon design definitely showcases things in a very different light. In most art, Thanatos was often shown as a beautiful angel or a bearded old man. So what's this short, lumpy green guy all about? I get that Thanatos is seen as a bringer of death and all, but I couldn't find any sources describing him as diseased and warty. Well, it turns out Kaneko took to one of his favorite manga for inspiration. While this depiction features some elements from his mythos, such as the Black Cloak and Death Dagger, the short, lumpy old man design comes straight out of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable, with the demonic Thanatos design drawing inspiration from Okuyasu Nijimura's father, a seemingly immortal and horribly disfigured man. A slightly modified version of this design appeared in Persona 1, showing us that even before Thanatos was a persona, he was still based on a stand. As far as game history goes, much like in his design, Thanatos is best known for his roles throughout the Persona series, but let's flip things around and focus on the demon stuff first. Thanatos first appeared in the original Devil Summoner and later appeared in Card Summoner, two games most Western audiences don't have much familiarity with. It wasn't until 2018 Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux that Western audiences came face to face with this specific design. Thanatos has a very small role as a demon added to the enhanced version. As an embodiment of death that even gods fear, Thanatos was trapped deep within the womb of grief, and should the player find him and free him, he will thank the player and be unlocked for fusion. As mentioned previously, the demon design of Thanatos appeared in Persona 1. During the events of the Snow Queen quest, Thanatos appears as the persona of Yuriko Yamamoto, who acts as the guardian of the Thanatos Tower. In life, she was pretty and popular, but was sadly driven to suicide out of fear for the future. When summoned, Thanatos takes over her entire body and fights the party with his tentacles, eventually being reduced to a single floating eyeball. Thanatos is best known for his role in Persona 3 and its subsequent versions. Near the very beginning of the game, when Makoto first summons Orpheus, he temporarily awakens to another power, a mysterious persona that rips the Magician Shadow to pieces with ease before disappearing. We later discover this persona to be Thanatos, and he is unlocked for fusion after completing the story-based social link with Pharos, the mysterious shadow boy who shows up in your room throughout the story. We later learn the reason Makoto has this power is due to an event 10 years ago, where Aigis sealed the literal shadow of death inside the protagonist. Makoto was able to manifest this shadow into a usable persona, resulting in Thanatos. True to his origins, the Thanatos persona primarily excels in physical and death-based attacks, and would later appear as a DLC persona in other titles, like the Persona Q series of games and Persona 5. The former of which would introduce us to Thanatos' signature ability, Door of Hades, a powerful almighty attack with a high chance of also causing instant death. Thanatos also appears prominently in the Persona 4 arena games as the primary persona used by Elizabeth. It's entirely possible there is a legitimate story reason why Elizabeth chose to use Thanatos, such as it being symbolic of Makoto and his death, or perhaps it aids her in giving Erebus his yearly smackdown on the moon. But given that the developers of the game have stated the main reason for the Persona 4 cast to use their initial personas was simply an artistic choice, I'm going to assume the real reason Elizabeth uses Thanatos is because he looks cool, and they wanted someone to use him. Elizabeth would also use Thanatos outside of the Megami Tensei series itself, with the two of them appearing in a crossover event with the game Lord of Vermilion Re-2, where she utilizes powerful almighty attacks. At the time of making this episode, it's unknown if Elizabeth and Thanatos will be showing up in BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. But while we're on the subject of that game, since Cross Tag Battle has a Megaten connection, I consider anything from it to be fair game. And if you play as the Undernight in-birth character Orie, you'll see she has the EXS of Purity, allowing her to summon, let's face it, basically a persona. This being is also known as Thanatos, and it makes me hope that Elizabeth gets added to this game, because I'd love to see some Thanatos versus Thanatos action. Since his debut, Thanatos has consistently remained one of the most iconic and beloved personas, often ranking highly in popularity polls amongst fans, which to me makes it even crazier that he was one of the first personas that Seijima ever designed. I guess you could say, he really killed it. And so there you have it, Thanatos, the Deathbringer deity of darkness, doom, and destruction. And I'd like to give a special shout out to my patron Steven Osriel for making this episode possible. Did I leave out something you thought was important? Was I just plain wrong about something? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to let me know who you'd like to see me talk about in future episodes. That's going to do it for this episode of the Demonic Compendium, and I'll see you next time. But be careful while you rest that a demon doesn't take over your body.